You know that sound? That dreaded nonstop dripping sound? Or even worse, when you walk into a room and just see water spreading where it absolutely shouldn't be? Yeah, it's one of the most stressful things a homeowner can go through. It just feels like total chaos. But what's really going on, on a scientific level, when water decides to invade our homes? All right, let's get into it.
So we all know how it starts, right? But the real story, the part that actually determines how much damage and cost you're looking at, is everything that happens in the hours and days that come after. The second the water hits, a clock starts ticking.
And what's wild is that this kind of disaster doesn't always come from some huge, dramatic storm. Nope. More often than not, it actually starts with the most boring, everyday stuff hiding right inside our walls.
That's right, we're talking about your washing machine deciding to overflow, a water heater that just gives up, or even a tiny little supply line on a toilet that fails. Any one of those things can take a perfectly normal day and turn it into a massive headache in a matter of minutes.
Okay, but here's the most important point of all. That puddle of water you see on the floor, that's just the tip of the iceberg. The real enemy is the water you can't see, the moisture that gets trapped deep inside your home's structure.
And this is the number you have to burn into your memory. 24 to 48 hours. Seriously, this isn't a suggestion, it's a hard deadline set by science. After this window closes, a simple water problem starts to morph into a much more serious and frankly hazardous mold problem.
Just look at how fast this happens. On day one, the water's just soaking into everything. Your drywall, your subfloor, you name it. But by day two, all those invisible mold spores that are just floating around in the air all the time, they've found a perfect, damp home, and they start to grow. And if you wait until day 5, you could be staring at the beginnings of actual structural rot. It is shockingly fast.
So, how in the world do you find this hidden enemy? Well, your house will actually start to give you clues. That musty smell you just can't track down, or paint that starts to bubble up, or maybe your wood floors are suddenly warping. These are not just little cosmetic quirks. They are giant red flags that moisture is trapped somewhere.
And this is exactly where the approach you take makes all the difference. This isn't just about mopping up a mess. It's about applying some pretty rigorous science to get a building truly dry again.
Just look at the two different mindsets here. The DIY approach, with some box fans and a mop, it only deals with what you can see on the surface. It's basically all guesswork. And that guesswork can cost you thousands in mold removal later on. But the professional approach, it's all about the data, using powerful, specialized equipment to pull moisture from deep inside the materials.
And the pros aren't just making this stuff up as they go. They follow a super strict scientific rulebook called the IICRC S500 standard. You can think of it as the official playbook for water restoration that makes sure the job is done right and, more importantly, safely.
I absolutely love this way of explaining it. It just perfectly captures the whole goal. They are literally changing the environment inside your house, the temperature, the humidity, the airflow, to create conditions where the building materials have no other choice but to let go of all that trapped moisture.
The technical term for this whole process is psychrometric drying. I know, it sounds really complex, but the idea is actually pretty straightforward. It's just the physics of moisture. If you can control the conditions in the air, you can control how quickly and how completely moisture evaporates out of wet things like drywall and wood.
So how do they even know where all that hidden moisture is? Well, they use technology. They do something called moisture mapping with tools like thermal imaging cameras. These cameras let them literally see temperature differences. See, wet areas are cooler because of evaporation, so they pop right up on the camera. It gives the technicians a complete map of the problem, even what's hiding behind the walls.
And this part is so important. The source of the water changes the entire game plan. Category 1 is clean water, say from a burst water pipe. That's the simplest scenario. But Category 2, what we call gray water from an appliance overflow, that's got contaminants in it and needs special treatment. And then you've got Category 3, or black water, from something like sewage. That is a serious health hazard, and it means any porous material it touched has to be removed, period.
So you see, when professionals show up, they are not just there to mop. They're kicking off a very deliberate, multi-step process. It's designed to take a property from completely saturated and dangerous, all the way back to stable, safe, and dry.
The whole process follows 3 clear stages. It always starts with assessing the situation and extracting all the standing water. Then comes the most important part, the drying and monitoring phase. Equipment is running 24/7, and technicians are taking readings every single day. And finally, the job only ends with verification, proving with hard data that the structure is back to its normal pre-loss dry standard.
And that brings us to what might be the single most important lesson in all of this. In the aftermath of water damage, there is a huge, huge difference between something that looks dry and something that is verifiably dry, all the way to its core.
All right, so let's do a quick recap of the really key points. First, that 24 to 48-hour window is everything if you want to prevent mold. Second, remember that hidden moisture is the real villain of this story. Third, the only real solution is science, not guesswork. Fourth, the type of water completely changes the rules of the game. And finally, the job is not done when it looks dry, it's done when the data proves it's dry.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. The next time you're faced with water damage, don't just ask if the property is dry. Ask if it's certifiably dry. Because honestly, the difference between those two words could mean the difference between a simple repair and a much, much bigger problem down the road.